right, hello everybody, good evening, and welcome into a Friday edition of KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Poulose, joined by the great Gabe Swartz on this cold February Friday afternoon. Gabe, how are you doing heading into the weekend?
I'm good. Looking forward to it. Lots of stuff going. I feel like we got like a huge dump of quotes today from Bill Self and Andy Reid. And it was exactly what we needed on this Friday, specifically for this show.
Yeah, sometimes they talk about a Friday news dump. I don't know if it was that, but boy, we got a bunch to talk about with KU and the Chiefs. But we're going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're the biggest fish to fry here in the Kansas City market. And one of the biggest questions surrounding the Chiefs this offseason is the potential return of Pro Bowl, future Hall of Fame tight end Travis Kelce. Last year, people kind of were speculating that it could be his final year in the NFL, but obviously we know how that song and dance ended, not the way the Chiefs wanted it to, but Travis remained one of the most productive tight ends in all of football. I believe he finished with the fourth most receiving yards among all tight ends. And then today, head coach Andy Reid was asked like how the Chiefs are kind of handling, what are they going to do with the offseason question of is Kelce coming back? And head coach Andy Reid said there is communication between both parties, and we've heard Travis talk about how he's excited to see Eric Bieniemy back in the building. Now we get this kind of little morsel of information from Andy Reid, who often does not say a lot to the media. I think that's about the biggest indication we'll ever get from him, is saying that there is communication. But, Gabe, I kind of want to turn this conversation here. To me, it seems like Travis Kelce's coming back like almost 100%. What are your kind of thoughts on that? Because to me, it just seems like the more and more this builds up, it's just like he's going to come back, he's ready to play, he's in shape, and he's still productive. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Andy Reid said today, at one point, one of the quotes that he gave was, I don't want to put words in Travis's mouth, which to me indicated that Andy Reid knows something that people don't know, and he is just tiptoeing around it because he doesn't want to be the one breaking the news. But we did get reports during Super Bowl week from several national reporters of belief in the building being that this was the direction that Travis was leaning. He appeared on his sister-in-law's podcast, and she said, I feel like this is a good way for you to get a little bit of extra rest and then come back for next year, in relation to missing the playoffs and not having to play 3 or 4 extra games in January and early February. So I've since then been operating under and just since Christmas night, where he didn't really have the typical emotional reaction. We know that him and his brother are pretty emotional guys, and they wear their emotions on their sleeves. And when he didn't really react crazily to walking off the field at Arrowhead, in a game that wasn't just like a spur of the moment, he had plenty of time to think about, we're not going to play in the playoffs. This is the last game at Arrowhead of this season. Since then, it has pointed in the direction of him coming back. And to your point about the receiving yards he's put up, he's still a good player. And as far as the contract that he gets and whether that is prohibitive toward the Chiefs building a good offense around him and taking the load off of him, that's a different conversation to have. But he is still a worthwhile player. And I think that last year did nothing but solidify that in his mind of, like, I can still do this. It was a frustrating year, but he had a better year last year than he did 2 years ago, and 2 years ago he dealt with a lot more injuries and such. But that's kind of, I guess, what the last month and a half has felt like, and nothing of my opinion changed based on what I heard from Andy Reid today. It just sounds like they're working on what the numbers are going to be to bring him back.
Yeah, and I think if you just looked at this objectively, if you took Travis's name and his accolades and his history out of the equation, and you just looked at maybe, hey guys, the Chiefs have a chance to add a guy who had the 4th most receiving yards among all tight ends. They need a guy that's going to start at tight end this year. You'd be like, oh yeah, let's jump on it, let's get that done. And like that appears to be what they're doing here with Travis Kelce. And I like what you said about the comments that he made, I believe, on Kylie Kelce's, or the comments that she made on the podcast with Travis. Because I know a lot of people have maybe talked about how much that extra football, all those extra games that the Chiefs have played, how much that has physically worn on them. But I want to emphasize, like, there's a lot of mental fatigue, I think, that goes into this. I mean, when you go to the playoffs, the eye of the football world is upon you. And when you play for the Kansas City Chiefs, when you're under the microscope that they've been, just because of the success that they've had, like you just constantly have all this attention on you. And I think that burden of expectation and the burden of all that attention, I don't think they'd ever say this out loud, but I mean, that would wear on a person. Like, think about any of us, like in our regular everyday lives, like you know, people react differently when there's a lot of attention and a lot of pressure on them. And I think that really drained their energy. And something that really kind of stood out to me today is Andy Reid. Like, obviously it was through Zoom. Like, none of the media talked to him there in person, but I was shocked by the amount of energy that he had. And I like how it's funny to say this, but like how loudly he was answering questions. I mean, Gabe, you've seen Coach Andy Reid talk at the podium. You've seen him talk in these Zooms, and it's almost like he's whispering these answers. Like, but today,
well, that's what getting up at 3:30 in the morning every day from August through December does to you.
He certainly just seemed like he had a little bit more rest, a little bit more energy, and I think, you know, they're a little more energized going into this offseason. So good news maybe there on the Travis Kelce front, as the Chiefs and Travis kind of keep leaving these little breadcrumbs that he's coming back. But I think Gabe's right. They're trying to figure out what the number is going to be and how to bring him back, which leads us right into kind of our next topic, because the Chiefs, they're fully engaged in the offseason. The Super Bowl was a couple weeks ago. The NFL draft is coming up in a little more than 2 months. The NFL Combine, obviously, players are being tested, seeing what's going on. But I want to start with not the draft, but I want to start, Gabe, with Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he is the absolute most central figure to the entire Kansas City Chiefs organization. If Patrick Mahomes can play football, the Chiefs are always going to be in a good spot. But obviously, we know he has a torn ACL. We know that he is rehabbing, and we don't really know exactly when he's going to come back. We know, obviously, he's the ultimate competitor. He never wants to put his teammates in a bad position. He wants to be there for the organization more than anyone else. Like, he really is like that. And then we heard today that he's rehabbing in Kansas City in the facility for 7 hours every single day. Gabe, I have never torn my ACL, but I have a good buddy who's torn his ACL 3 times. I know my mom tore her ACL. There's plenty of people I know have torn ACLs. I can't imagine doing 7 hours of rehab every day. Like, what can you do in 7 hours every day to get your knee better? But when you hear that, it's got to make you feel pretty good as a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what all the workouts would entail. I do know that we got the briefest glimpse of what his recovery looked like during the 2022 season when the Netflix documentary was following him around, and he had the high ankle sprain during the AFC Championship week, and they showed the behind the scenes of him working out with his trainer Bobby Stroop. And I have to think that they're attacking things like this because even whether it's realistic or not, the week 1 target date that Patrick is wanting to get to, I'm sure that it is fueling him. There are countless examples that we can point to over the last 8 years of Patrick Mahomes being in Kansas City as the starting quarterback of this team, of him being a psycho competitor and not being a normal individual when it comes to competitive drive. And I think that the injury and the failure of last season and the way that last season went before he got hurt is fueling him to figure things out. I'm sure that he's been in communication with the organization and being in the building. I think that it is encouraging that he's doing it here in Kansas City, not just going off on his own and secluding himself away from people. I think it's really encouraging. I know that the things that you hear about torn ACL recovery, I had a buddy who tore it playing intramural basketball in college. And
real athlete right there.
Yeah, and just the fact of the matter is, this is of course their job. It's a professional athlete. He has nothing else to do aside from fatherly duties and being a husband. But aside from that, it's his job to rehab. But you hear from people who have to balance school or work or all these other things, and it's like, man, it was so rigorous getting all of this time out of my day to do physical therapy and get myself back. That is why I've heard from people, and it's like, oh, I didn't feel good until a year and a half, 2 years later. And the athletes are certainly different. we see all of the injuries and stuff that they play through on Sundays and such that makes them very clearly very different than the rest of us. I just would say that it's very encouraging. And the thing that Andy Reid said to that point is, even when you don't want to do it, you have to keep doing it, and that's what he's doing at this point. And that is just it's the routine of it, the battling through when you don't want to. That's good. Ultimately, none of us know how it's going to turn out in August, whether he's out there in St. Joe or September when the season comes around. But it at least sounds encouraging.
No, it certainly does. And I think it just gives you a little bit of an insight into just how different these elite athletes are from an average person. I mean, you talk about a guy that's rehabbing for 7 hours every single day. Like, that is just unbelievable, because this rehab, I promise you guys, it is not pain-free. Like, there's probably some stuff that he's doing that's very uncomfortable, things that he doesn't want to do, things that don't feel good to his body, but he's doing it because it's what's best for it in the long run. He's doing it repeatedly, day after day after day. And I know so many times, like, we see these athletes and we say, hey, like, you know, in many ways, they could be just like us. They're humans. They have to put 2 feet forward. That's how they walk every day. Like, when they have big successes, they call their mom and dad and their girlfriends and wives and all these other things. But what you don't see is that he's rehabbing for 7 hours every single day. But, Gabe, I kind of want to ask you a question here, because to me, obviously, Patrick, it would seem to me he would want to get on the field as soon as possible. And the Chiefs maybe – not saying that this is the case, but this could be a situation that arises down the line where they're going to have to maybe potentially hold Mahomes back from himself, where he's going to be like, guys, I can go, I'm ready, but maybe for the best interest in Patrick's long-term career, or maybe for the organization overall, you don't want to put him out there too early where he could risk a re-injury. I mean, so, Gabe, if you were the Chiefs and that situation were to arise, how would you kind of tell your franchise quarterback, like, hey, buddy, I know that you're ready. I know you're the best quarterback in football. I know you physically feel ready, but we don't want to have you re-injure this. Do you see that being a situation that could arise?
Well, I think that the good thing for them is that they have – I wouldn't say it's good that he's had the high ankle sprain against the Jaguars or the dislocated kneecap against the Broncos in 2019, but there are several instances of him dealing with injuries, and the Chiefs, not a lot of franchises, and let's be honest, a lot of the time, some of the friction between Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs, for example, if you know that situation as a sports fan, or just other instances, there's a lot of times where the athlete and the team doctor works for the team doctor doesn't work for the athlete, and sometimes a player's own trainer or whatever has a differing opinion than the player. But to the Chiefs' credit, the one thing that you can say about the Mahomes recovery is, yeah, they've been aggressive with him, with getting him back on the field, but they haven't been reckless. There has been several times we saw, again, where Andy Reid going up to Patrick Mahomes during a playoff game when Patrick Mahomes said, just let me go back out there. And he said, no, you need to go get an MRI. And Chad Henne took a drive and played quarterback for 2 series during a playoff game. So the Chiefs, they're aggressive with getting him back out there because they understand the value of him. But to my point, they're not reckless. And I think this is not going to be new for them in terms of entering a situation where they are at odds maybe with Mahomes at times, of him wanting to do something that they are not comfortable with him doing at that moment. And so luckily this is a franchise that has a great relationship with Mahomes, and he has worked with them. We saw that earlier this week, restructuring the contract. He's done that countless times. There have been so many instances of this relationship being a yin and yang of give and take, of just them working together. So I think that's encouraging for the situation.
I like how you said that, because I really do think there's a good synergy between Mahomes, Bobby Stroop, Julie Freymeier, Rick Burkholder, all parties involved. I don't think anyone's working against each other. They're all working with each other. Obviously, we hope what's best for Patrick. And 7 hours of rehab every day. It sounds like he's definitely doing the work, and it sounds like his rehab is going very, very well. Something that we're all interested here in Kansas City. But staying with the Chiefs off season, so the draft is a little bit more than 2 months away. way, and the Chiefs are going to be picking at number 9 overall. That's going to be their highest draft pick since they picked Eric Fisher, number 1 overall in 2013. Now, fans and a lot of people online are kind of speculating as to what the positions of need are for the Chiefs, but I think maybe the most popular ones are running back, defensive line, safety, and I'm going to throw in offensive line because you always got to protect the quarterback. But 2 players I think in particular have maybe kind of stood out to Chiefs fans, maybe at that number 9 spot. And I'm not sure that maybe at that number 9 spot they'd be worth the value. Now, I'm talking about Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love, who does appear to be the best running back in this class. The Chiefs certainly need a running back. And then Ohio State safety Caleb Downs, who obviously finished his career at Ohio State, but he started for Nick Saban as a true freshman at Alabama. If I want to let you guys know, Nick Saban coaches defensive backs. If he's starting a true freshman, this kid's probably pretty good. But Gabe, my question for you, obviously those are 2 positions of need, running back and safety, with 2 elite players who could potentially be there for the Chiefs at number 9. But are those positions worth spending a top 10 pick on, considering like if you drafted Jeremiah Love number 9 overall, you basically need him to be Saquon Barkley from day one just by what you're paying him. What do you think about that?
Well, there's a lot of data, and I retweeted one earlier this week of the difference in production between someone who's picked in the first round and someone who's picked in the 5th, 6th, 7th round in the NFL draft. It is largely a guess as to how solid of NFL production someone is going to give you at the running back position. And when you factor that in, when you factor in the percentage of the salary cap at which the number 9 overall selection is going to give you if you are giving them running back money, versus a free agent class that has Breece Hall and has Etienne from the Jaguars and has Kenneth Walker, if Kenneth Walker is not franchise tagged, which Adam Schefter reported he's not going to be because the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl, so they have to pay the Super Bowl tax. And that is repay your quarterback and pay other people on the team. Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably going to get a contract. All of those things. It's a good running back free agent class if the Chiefs want to address it there. I think that that's a better option. The Caleb Downs thing is interesting because, yes, you can argue positional value and such, but the hit rate on highly drafted safeties is a lot higher. And I think a lot of people, Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens, slipped a lot in the first round. And in hindsight, people could say, man, a lot of people would say at the time when Kyle Hamilton was going through the draft process, it was, hey, this guy's going to be a really good football player, but positional value, so we probably shouldn't pick him until like the 20s. Then you got to the 20s, he got picked, and he turned out to be an awesome football player. So there's that. I think that the Chiefs are going to be forced into drafting, or not necessarily forced into, but they would be wise to just draft another wide receiver because they still don't have a wide receiver 1. Rashee Rice has not exhibited on or off the field that he can be trusted at that level. Travis Kelce, we just talked about him coming back, but that's not a long-term solution. And Xavier Worthy doesn't exactly give off wide receiver 1 production vibes either, and there's several options. So I think that it's wide receiver or defensive end, and you address one of the significant needs that also can give you a blue-chip talent. I don't think Jeremiah Love should be a realistic option for this team because I think they have too many other issues.
No, I completely agree with what you said there, but I'm really tantalized by the talent of Caleb Downs. I saw him play in person against Miami in the Cotton Bowl, and you could make an argument that he was one of the best players on the field. I mean, and I know it's college football and all this stuff, yada, 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 but to me, when Nick Saban, who coaches defensive backs, who's one of the best coaches in the history of football, is willing to start you as an 18-year-old, to me that tells me you're a prodigy. And that tells me that you're really, really good. And then after that, you win the Jim Thorpe Award. You're a first-team All-American. I mean, he's one of the best players in all of football. And the Chiefs need a safety. I think we saw last year the departure of Justin Reed really hurt this team. I hate to say there's how many times did I see 21 Jaden Hicks just not making a safety play. Like he's the guy that had to prevent a touchdown and he just didn't do it. Yeah. And I think if the Chiefs could maybe get some more solid there on the back end, I think they could have won a few more games. But hey, that's the NFL draft. The Chiefs pick at number 9. That's a place where they cannot miss. They are going to need to pick a good player. All right, moving on to college basketball. We've got 3 more topics in 10 minutes. We're going to move quickly here. But everyone in college basketball now has their eye eyes on KU superstar freshman guard Darryn Peterson this week on Wednesday against Oklahoma State. I mean, he showcased the good and the bad of Darryn Peterson. In 18 minutes, he scored 23 points. He was the best scorer on the floor. He's probably the best scorer in all of college basketball, but the issue is he played just 3 minutes in the second half, and then he absolutely got blasted by local media, by national media, by fans. I mean, it's coming at this kid from all angles because he is that good and because there's no clear indication as to what we're hearing. Cramping, we're hearing flu-like symptoms, we're hearing hamstring. All of these things could be true, but we're not hearing it from Darryn himself. And then today, KU head coach Bill Self comes to the media, and he goes, there is one way to change the narrative. Play, finish. Gabe, when I heard Bill Self say that, my jaw about hit the floor. Because I have never, at least in my opinion, and the times I've heard KU head coach Bill Self talk, I have never heard him kind of call out a player in the media. Do you think he was calling out Darryn Peterson? Do you think he was challenging Darryn Peterson? And why did he do this in the media?
I would encourage, if you can, if you have internet access, and if you're watching the show, you have internet access, or you're watching us via the app. So either way, you're technologically savvy enough to go to kctv5.com.
Let's go. Shout out to you guys.
Included all of the quotes that Bill Self gave today, which people will say he was calling him out. People will say he's challenging him. I certainly agree that he is challenging him, and that this is as nicely as Bill Self can say the quiet part out loud. I don't necessarily think that this means that Bill Self thinks that Darryn Peterson's soft, or thinks that he is avoiding things, or all of these types of things that some people may agree with or may think about. In fact, Bill Self said, I've seen what people are saying, and 70 to 80% of the narratives that are out there are not true. So I would love to know what the 20 to 30% of the narratives that he thinks might have a little bit of truth to it are. But
I think those are the Gabe Swartz articles. Those are the ones that are correct.
We'll see. Or just the inner thoughts. But I've seen a lot of things this week about people, or I've heard from Kansas fans, they're like, oh, this guy hates playing basketball. He hates doing these things. There are people who make it to the NBA and make it to the NBA based solely on the fact, or largely on the fact, that they are super tall, and that if you're a 7-footer, the percentage of 7-foot-tall American men who make the NBA is absurdly high because it's super rare. And some of those people make the NBA despite not loving basketball. But the one thing that you can say about Darryn Peterson, and I think that this is one of the points that I would hammer home the most in the he hates playing basketball camp, is the thing that he is so incredibly good at playing basketball is the skill stuff. It's shooting, it's touch, it is creating space. It's all of these things that are repetition based, are thousands, hundreds of hours in the gym, and you don't do that if you hate the game. So I think that he really wants to do it. I think that I would go back to what I said in January about this situation. I think that he has a little bit of a mental block, and that he has somewhere in his mind been told, if anything feels off, don't play, and some small thing keeps feeling off. And I think that Bill Self is trying to lightly push him in the direction with the support of his teammates. His teammates seem to love him. The support of his coaching staff. The coaching staff seems to really enjoy him. Every time that Bill Self says about the kid, he says, he's a great kid. All of those things, I think that they're just trying to usher him in the direction of, like, you can do this. You can play through the slightest pain in your quad if that is what you're experiencing. And the hope is that happens in March, and that it happens Monday night when they play number 2 Houston, and next Saturday when they play number 4 Arizona in Tucson. Maybe we're delusional to think that it's going to happen while he's at Kansas, but the talent is why we're delusional. The talent is why. This is like fandom. Fandom is short for fanatic. Fan is short for fanatic. And the reality is his talent is so tantalizing that it has zapped people into these crazy opinions because everybody just wants to see him play basketball. That's the end of the story.
An untrained eye could watch basketball and not know anything about the sport, and they could pick out that Darryn Peterson is the best player on the basketball court. He is that much better than everyone that he's playing with or against. And I don't mean that as a slight to anybody, but when you're that good, you just are that good. But I know some people out there maybe think that these storylines are unfair that are surrounding Darryn Peterson, but they're always going to follow him. When you're this good, you're always going to have the microscope on you. And also, if Darryn if he thinks these are unfair, he could come out and address the media and be like, hey, guys, this is what's going on. But he's choosing to not do that now, whether that's his decision, his family decision, the school's decision, his agent's decision, we don't know. But the fact of the matter is they are not coming out and telling us what exactly is going on. And I think maybe in 5-10 years, like they could do like a whole PR class on this about how this is how you don't handle a situation like this, because it has been so, in my opinion, just mismanaged it, and really to the detriment of a 19-year-old kid. But hopefully he's healthy, because when he's on the basketball court, it's unbelievable. KU taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats tomorrow at noon. Darryn Peterson is expected to start the game. We will see if he is able to finish that game. Now we're moving on to some spring training baseball. And Gabe, I believe you've heard the phrase, you can't win them all if you don't win the first. The Royals beat the Rangers 7-3 in their spring training opener. Salvador Perez had a home run. Bobby Witt Jr. had a triple as the Royals start their spring training slate 1-0. Gabe, now I'm not going to ask you if the Royals are going to go undefeated, but let's talk about some preseason expectations for this group, because I really believe they're a team that's going to make the playoffs this year. I think, obviously, last year they battled to the end, but I think there's going to be a lot of internal improvement within this group, starting with Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, I think he still has places he can go in this game, and he's one of the best players in all of baseball. How are you feeling about the Royals, going into the year?
I've been pretty steadfast on my opinion that if you played the Royals season last year 100 times, that the outcome that they dealt with is one of the bottom 10 percentile outcomes. And obviously, you don't get the chance to play the season 100 times. That is not what happens. But the reality of the situation is that that team underperformed given the talent on the roster and was hamstrung by an awful season of offense from their outfield. So I am encouraged. I sent a text to a friend of mine who is a big Royals fan and said, spring training doesn't matter, but a Salvi home run, a Michael Massey home run, a hit from Jack Caglione, and a triple from Bobby is a good sign. There's the end of my Friday, February 20th Royals thoughts for the day.
Hey, it's very early to make some big predictions, but I think if you're a Royals fan, there are so many reasons for optimism this year, not just because the 10 games are on KCTV5, including the home opener. You won't want to miss that one. But just look, I mean, the left side of the Royals infield, they have the best left infield in all of baseball. They have Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Garcia, Gold Glovers, all-stars. You look at Vinny Pasquantino, who's coming off a 3,100 season. I mean, you look at some of the players, like Salvador Perez, a future Hall of Famer. They have 8 or 9 guys that could be starting pitchers. I mean, they could easily trade one of those guys for anything that they need. So I think Royals fans, a lot of reason for optimism, but still, baseball's a long season. Injuries could always happen. We'll see what happens there, but the vibes are good around the Royals, and I think they're going to have a good year. One more thing to talk about today, actually 2 more things that we're going to talk about, but first one, Park Hill South, Addison Bajorn was named a McDonald's All-American, the only one in the area. She is a top 10 recruit in the country. She's going to be playing college basketball next year at the University of Texas. Today, she's going to get her jersey at halftime of a basketball game out there at Park Hill South. So if hey guys, if you want to see like what a top talent looks like in this area, I would recommend going to one of Addison's basketball games. I saw her a couple weeks ago. The fluidity with which she plays with at 6'3", 6'4", I mean, she is an unbelievable basketball player. Cannot wait to see what happens there. And then Gabe, this one's not here on the docket there, but we have to talk about it. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting that former Rockhurst graduate Nathan Shieldhouse has been promoted to the co-offensive coordinator job with the LA Rams. Nathan interviewed for several head coaching jobs this cycle, seems to be a rising star in the coaching ranks. How cool is it to see a local guy? I mean, the LA Rams OCs pretty much all become good head coaches.
He's getting a head coaching
job. It's
job.
like the Midas touch. What do you think about that?
It's coming at some point, and who knows what the franchise will be, but I think that he is in the pipeline of offensive guys who will have their pick of the litter for a head coaching job.
No, he certainly is, and it's so cool to see all these local standouts go out in their careers and do what they do, represent Kansas City, and become the best. Like, shout out to you, Nathan Shieldhouse, Addison Bajorn. Shout out to you for getting that McDonald's All-American selection. We'll have some coverage of that coming up tonight at 10 p.m. But for now, that is a look at KC Sports Tonight on this Friday, February 20th. We will see you guys later. Take care, guys.